Hey, what's up guys? It's me, Mr. McCabe, sitting on my front porch. So we're gonna start our first project, which is a stamp. We're gonna make a stamp and we're gonna carve into it either your last name or most commonly your initials. And with that, we're gonna make a tool that we're gonna use to sign all our projects that are coming up. So I brought out some stamps that I've made. So the most important part of the stamp, or the first thing that you make for your stamp, is the stamp body. So it's just like all my stamps. The body I don't care about. They're just little cones, little shapes. The thing that I care about is the face of the stamp, where whatever you're doing gets carved into it. So the shape of the stamp face is what matters. So having nice edges on it matters. Okay, so that's the first thing that we're going to do, is we're going to make our stamp body, and then when it firms up, when the clay gets a little bit harder, then we'll be able to carve into it. So I use stamps quite a bit for different projects. This is one, if you can see, it says the end. Sometimes I use this stamp to stamp like in the bottom of a mug, so when you finish, you know you're at the end. So you can have some fun with them for sure. Some other ones I've got are over here. Some of my other stamps I've got down here, the ones that I've made, the end right there. This is one that I made for a wedding. I was making some items and using this stamp to stamp into, because I had to do so many of them for a wedding. Here's another one I used. It's like a little dog paw. Another one is a tooth. Sometimes I make little toothbrush holders, so I'll stamp that little tooth into it, or a shamrock, or a little dog rear end. Some other ones that I've had professionally made for myself, and my company is called Running Dog Pottery. So these were made out of wood, cut with a laser cutter, and they're really nice because the wood releases nicely from the clay. And another one I've made recently for some sculptures I'm doing, making little tin cans, and this is the little pull tab to open the tin can. And I carved this out, as you can see, so that I can take a little ball of clay and press it in there, and that way I can make tons of little pop tops without having to sculpt them individually. I just had to sculpt it one time. I had to carve it in reverse into this clay, and then I fired it, and now I can use this stamp. This technique is called sprigging, but I can use this stamp to make tons and tons of clay pop tops instead. So I've got some clay out here. I brought out a couple supplies, a little bag of clay. So what we're going to start with is making the body of our stamp and kind of working on the face of it. So I'm just going to grab a little ball of clay. I'm going to start by just kind of rolling this around. For the stamps, I'm not super particular as to what the body looks like, but we do want to have a nice face to the stamp. So the flat part of the stamp that you push in to whatever you're stamping with, this is called the face of the stamp. We want that to be nice, and we can clean it up later, but we want to kind of have a general idea of where we're going with this. Okay, so I'm just rolling out a little ball of clay, and then I'm kind of putting that ball of clay in between my hands and bringing my hands to a V like this and letting that elongate, kind of like a carrot shape or a teardrop shape, so it comes to a point. And then I can kind of take it on the table in front of you, or whatever surface. I just have a little board here, and I'm kind of dropping that down. Okay, so it's starting to flatten out on one end. But right now, if you look at this, there's my flat face. The shape of it isn't great, and the sides are kind of rounded out. We want to sharpen the edges. So what I do for that is I just go back and forth. I'm rolling it now on my surface and then dropping it down. And by going back and forth, you can really start to sharpen those edges. Right now the clay is really soft, it's wet clay, so you're not going to be able to do a whole bunch with it today. But when this firms up and we come back to this tomorrow, we can even take a fettling knife or a potter's knife, which are in your toolbox, and I can cut that down. If it's firmed up a bit, I can cut this down and really improve and flatten the face of it and sharpen the edges around there. So this is all we need to start. It's just a really roughed out, basic, simple kind of cone or whatever shape. Okay. You can also lay this down on the surface, and instead of bringing my hand parallel to the tabletop or my surface, I can turn it on an angle, and as I roll that, the clay kind of conforms to that and starts to taper down. And then flattening the face and just kind of going back and forth. See how rough these edges are right now? I want to smooth and straighten that all out. So that's what I'm looking at right now. So in completing a stamp body, all we're really after is some general shape. I tend to do cones, but you don't have to. And then also we want to have a nice flat face and good sharp edges. And the size of the stamp face should be about the size of a quarter. If it's too much smaller than that, hello. If it's too much smaller than that, it can be hard to carve, and if it's too much bigger than the size of a quarter, it's too much of a stamp face to press in, so it can be tough to use. So we're shooting for about the size of a quarter. So with these stamps, usually the most simple and easiest and versatile face that you can make on a stamp is just a simple circle with a hard edge. But there's lots of other shapes that you can make just using, again, a fettling knife. I can take this simple shape because I don't care about the body. All I care about right now is the smooth, flat face and nice sharp edges. So if I wanted to, I can cut away the sides if I want to have a square. Now I have a nice square shape face. So I don't care about any of this. So I can have a square. If I want, I can also cut out of this one. I cut this V out of this one to make it look like Pac-Man. And now I can squeeze it and round out those points and then pull this into a point, and that will look like a heart shape. And now the face of it is all distorted, but tomorrow when this firms up considerably, I can take my knife tool and cut that and flatten it out, and I'll have a really nice face. Another simple shape to cut out is by cutting out triangles like this. I'm going quickly and roughly here. But I'm cutting out these triangle shapes. And in doing so, I have now a star. And again, the body is all very rough, but I don't care about that. All I care about is the impression that my tool is making. So again, when this firms up, I can take my knife tool, my fettling knife, and I can just cut right across here. And then I'll have a nice flat stamp face with really tight edges that I can carve my initials into.